Thank you for coming today. This is a very special evening. UPF has two co-founders, Father and Mother Moon. And Mother Moon is still with us and still leading our movement. But Father Moon passed away 14 years ago at the age of 92. And I remember time it was such a shock, although we knew it was going to happen, of course, but it was such a shock. But he's been such a powerful force in the birth and the life of UPF, but also preceding organizations. He was someone who could probably start about 3 or 4 different organizations on one day. He always wanted to do everything so quickly. There's so many things that he wanted to fulfill during his life. So it's a great opportunity on the anniversary of his day of Ascension to really remember him and remember his dynamism, charisma, and his powerful speeches. Sometimes they were very long, but it always came out of those long speeches, maybe with a kind of aching back or something, but actually your spirit was soaring. And this was his life. He said, you want to change something for a day, then make effort. But if you really want to change things for 100 years, you have to change people. And this was his life. Plant people so that they could really be an influence for the rest of their lives and for their descendants' lives as well. So today we have an opportunity to indulge in our memories. And first up, we have Reverend Dr. David Hanna, who is the former president of UPF, Universal Peace Federation in Northern Europe. Before that, he had many years of leadership in the Federation of World Peace and Education in Ireland, and many other very responsible missions. I remember he did a doctorate studying theories of after death from many theological positions and from different faith traditions from the University of Wales. So he's also a great musician. So he's very much involved. Very much involved in being told to Tony, but he's a great musician. So he's putting music in very spirit to lift an audience. So please, let's welcome Reverend Dr. David. No, I'll sit here.
Good evening, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for joining us on this special day, 14th anniversary commemorative program, to honor the life of our UPF founder, that is Reverend Sun Myung Moon. You know, his accomplishments are many and highly significant, and the organizations that he founded, projects he initiated, they were done with such a deep love for God and a universal vision as well, and a desire to set in place the foundations to allow all people to live together peacefully and harmoniously. Also allowing our creative and caring energies to really surmount our past failings as a human race and our enmities. So in religious terms, you know, his vision was of a kingdom of heaven on earth, as well as in the eternal spiritual realm. And he sought to encourage people to build this really themselves, of course with God's help, but not just expecting it to arrive, but to get down and get busy, create a better society, make it work, and create a beautiful world for future generations. So Universal Peace Federation, under his guidance and inspiration, it was set up as a non-confessional organization, and deliberately so, actually. Much of its strength and effectiveness, I think, derives from this fact. Of course, he is also the founder of what came to be known as the Unification Church or other religious activities, but for reaching this goal of building a better world, he knew actually it has to be much broader and all-encompassing than that. So people of any faith can join. There's no question that I'm asked about what you believe or insistence on any particular belief. It's let's work together. That's the kind of wonderful feeling. And also, he extended that to conscientious people of no particular faith. And I think that's absolutely right. I was very happy when I first discovered that, because we need to honor those people who are really doing good and seeking to do good. So tonight, though, I want to share with you some points that maybe relate more to Father Moon's inner life, let's say, and his own personal convictions. And the purpose being that together we can know the person better and get to know him. So I'm not going to look at the projects and the organizations themselves, but pick out some points about how he saw himself. But of course, we have to say, first of all, that no one knows him better than his wife, Sun Moon. Right now, she is facing very difficult circumstances in South Korea, so our thoughts and prayers are with her. However, as husband and wife with a joint mission, they truly shared everything about their work, about their decisions, about their planning. So she absolutely knows his heart and mind. They are like one in that respect. And she's been determined to continue and develop the work that they did together. And that's very evident from the last years where she's been leading. At a speech that was given at the General Assembly of the Interreligious and International Federation for World Peace, it's a bit like a precursor to UPF, and that was back in August the 18th in 2002, Mother Moon spoke at the United Nations headquarters in New York. And in that speech, she says of her husband the following. I thought it might be nice to read this because this is her view of her husband. She said, Reverend Sun Myung Moon has devoted his entire life to realizing God's will and world peace. From a very young age, he has had a special relationship with God and conversed in deep prayer to receive answers to fundamental problems in life, such as the purpose of life and the origin of evil. Anyone who knows my husband will sense how immensely serious and grave he is. He has worshipped God through investing everything he has and has changed the lives of countless people, including young people. I was one of those once. In 185 countries around the world with the truth that he discovered called the divine principle. And she went on to say, my husband's life has not followed a smooth path. He has had to endure all sorts of misunderstandings and hardships. He had to withstand betrayal and torture, prison life, and several terror threats. However, no obstacle could bar his determination to fulfill the promise he made to God over 60 years ago on top of a mountain in Korea. He was age 15 at that time. As his wife, I have witnessed up close my husband's devoted life, which disregards food, clothes, shelter, and personal comfort. Reverend Moon comforted God's heart, even if it meant making it a priority over his own family and sacrificing his connection to his people and his country. I testify that my husband has lived a life solely focused on realizing God's hope, the ideal of world peace on earth. In a speech of his own, really towards the end of his life, when he was 87 years old, that would be 2007, in one of the so-called peace messages, Peace Message 13, he says, and this became a public speech, which he gave on many occasions, he talked about the kind of 8 areas in which he saw himself as a champion. Everyone's entitled to do that when you're reaching the end of your life, right? So you can look back. But it's interesting that he would do that. But it wasn't in terms of external accomplishments. It was in terms of what kind of insights and ideas and understandings he brought. So I'm going to go through these with you just to look at these 8 points. Are you ready? So his first, and it is knowledge of God. He put that first, knowledge of God. He said, even as I walked that thorny path, often coming very close to death, I received heaven's seal and was made fully aware of the destination of God's will. I held dearly to heaven's command to bring salvation to humanity as I returned like a phoenix and continued my turbulent life. His whole life is teaching, sharing about God's will and God's nature. He said, I've surmounted and triumphed over a course of great suffering and tribulation. I've not lived for personal glory or comfort. Throughout my life, I've been doing my very best to dissolve God's pain and sorrow and bring liberation and total freedom to his heart. Finally, on January the 13th, 2001, through the coronation ceremony of God's kingship, I was able to restore his throne of glory and power and offer it to him. So throughout his life was this internal journey of really, he called it liberating God. It's a very unusual expression, isn't it? But this was his honest feeling. He felt that in the world as it is today, God has not been free to be God. He has to liberate God in that way, comfort God's heart. So when I was young, I never heard anybody talking like this, and it touched me. I felt this is something to really investigate further. So that was his first kind of point of which he saw himself as a champion. And the second was bringing an understanding about the reality of Satan, evil or evil forces in the world. And this, of course, takes on different names or different understandings according to your faith background. But he says here, throughout history, human beings did not know the identity of the devil, Satan, whoever, caused the human fall, leading to all kinds of evil in the world. And for 14 years, I labored desperately to discover all the secrets of the spiritual world through many bruising spiritual battles. Finally, I came to find out the real identity of Satan, the origin of all evil. And taking one step further, I came to uncover Satan's strategy and tactics to multiply his power. This is not just a kind of vague spiritual understanding. He was very realistic. That's where his determination came from to tackle dialectical materialism in the form of communism and make a counter-proposal to these ideologies, which are God-denying ideologies, which absolutely ripped us, the in the world in the 20th century and still create havoc really in many places. So this was his kind of realistic task that he set himself. The third point was to do with the human condition. So I don't know if you can identify with this chap here is kind of pulled in two directions. Has some kind of conscience pricking at him if he's doing something that's not quite right, and he's also seeking to do good things with his life. So we have questions here. Why do we suffer inner struggles and have this kind of fighting in ourselves, which then manifests in fighting with other human beings, with our brothers and sisters? So this is something which he delved deeply into through his teaching and enables people to understand the source of conflict and the problem within themselves. So this is, of course, a major quest of religion everywhere. So why do we suffer internal struggles and fight each other? Well, selfish thoughts, words, and actions where the body is dominating, and we then, on the other hand, have unselfish thoughts, words, and actions where the original mind or conscience is leading us and pulling us towards goodness. So there's some battle in the mind of each person, and that manifests as conflict in the family, in the society, and in our world in general. The fourth point, in a way, it's already started to be covered by some of the points that he's mentioned. First of all, it's looking at the reality of Satan. That's curious. Did I bring it up on the screen? For 14 years, I desperately labored to discover all secrets of the spirit world through many bruising spiritual battles. Finally, I came to find out the real identity of Satan that way. So understanding the spiritual world is his next kind of point of achievement. And that again comes from his own experience, from the time of his boyhood encounter with Jesus to many other experiences, saints and sages and people in the spirit world. He was a person who, I think a common expression for it is spiritually open. He was spiritually open. So he could communicate that way, where many people can't, or a few can. But certainly he was an absolute, well, champion is maybe not the right word, but he was a supreme example of that. But interestingly, and I think this is significant, he never used it to draw people to himself. He had that ability to see things, and you could feel it, when he looked at you, you felt, he sees everything about me. It's an uncanny feeling, right? I think this is in common with people of high spiritual stature. When you meet them, you feel actually, oh, all my sins are exposed, right? He can see through me in this way. So, but he always handled that with great love to guide people, to receive inspiration and guidance from heaven, and then to turn it into practice, guiding people through this amazing understanding. So this is his understanding of the spiritual world, and contained within that is his strong belief of how the religions of the world are going to come together. Because people who die, who have been great leaders in the world's religious traditions, are very high in the spiritual world because of the life and the sacrifices they made, and the teaching they adhered to and lived by. And therefore, they will come together and work together, and maybe are the first people to really find the value of unity, be able to guide the world into, and their followers on earth, into unity. So unity of religions is not just a kind of practical, political type goal, which he's thinking about, but absolutely a necessity, guided by the spiritual world and helped by that realm. His fifth point was to do with understanding Jesus. So he is very much coming on the Judeo-Christian foundation, but also with the benefit of traditions that come from the Orient, from East Asia, Confucius and Lao Tzu, these other great teachers. So he studied Chinese classics and learned from them, and took a great interest at an early age in world religions. So he said, I came to grasp the tragedy of the crucifixion of Jesus. He came as God's son, savior and Messiah, but he was rejected and opposed even by the people that God had prepared. It was God's will that Jesus, as the second Adam, or new Adam, should fulfill the model of the God-centered ideal family and engraft all humankind to him. So if we chart the course of Christianity, it became the foundation of Western civilization through Rome. It kind of embarked on a westward journey, really. It's always stood in the position of the bride to receive the Lord at the second coming. Therefore, as Christians, people should comprehend the sorrowful part of Jesus that often gets overlooked. He was driven to the cross, unable to fully unfold God's will for him. And as he says here, my teachings clearly explain the truth of Jesus' mission, the nature of salvation through the cross, and the reason and purpose why he should return. That's very much within Christian understanding. But somewhere it's allowing new insights into this whole area. Interestingly, those new insights open the door for genuine unity between Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and other faiths as well, because it takes away some of the obstacles and barriers that are built up by traditional understanding. So it's a message of its time. He never said that what was taught before was wrong, or what other people believe was wrong. He never used that kind of language. Rather, he said, now is the time when God wants us to know something new, something different. So let's respond to that. Number 6 is knowledge of the scriptures. It's certainly the contents of the Bible and other religious scriptures as well. I was just reflecting that when he had his prison experience in America on trumped-up tax evasion charges, it was really, really nasty job that was done against him. But nevertheless, he took it, right? Just went to serve his 13-month sentence. And someone who was in the prison with him said, you know, he had 2 books with him. 2 books he took. One was the Holy Bible, and the other was the Holy Quran. He read the Holy Quran twice while he was in prison. So I thought this very interesting aspect to this man, always seeking to study and recognizing that God's word is there in the holy scriptures of the world. And then subsequently, he asked a whole group of scholars that had been brought together through through his various projects to edit and author a book called World Scripture, which brings together on various topics, a multitude of topics, topic by topic, insights and quotations from the world's religious traditions. And it's very fascinating, a very wonderful tool for unity. The 7th point which he made was his understanding of the goal of human history. He said history is not merely a record of events that take place by coincidence. It's a flowing toward a clear direction and purpose. It's a history for the providence of restoration for human beings and a history for their salvation. So human history has a goal, and he saw this very clearly himself. Finally, his 8th point, or maybe I can add to that because I already mentioned his work to be victorious over the ideology of communism. He said, because of this insight into the origin and direction of history, I was able to successfully predict the sudden end of communism and dialectic materials. And his final point, where he saw himself as a champion, was true family values. God's ideal of creation is to build God-centered true families. It is the goal of his salvation providence to restore the ideal of true family, the ideal that Adam could not fulfill in his own family, and in this way to establish the foundation of the kingdom of heaven on earth and in heaven. So he, in a way, was saying the age of pursuing your own individual salvation or spiritual enlightenment or whatever is coming to an end, and handing over to like a family level salvation. It has to be centered on the family. And this was the start of a whole family values movement, still continues today. And central to that also is the work of Father and Mother Moon in blessing people in marriage, right? Married couples and also people for whom it's their wedding day. So this is one of those weddings. And every little white dot that you see there is somebody in a wedding dress. And every blue or black dot is my husband in the suit. This is filling the Seoul stadium that was built for the Olympics in 1988. So this was his vision. Not saying that forever we have to get married in this style. It's not that. But this was a strong statement to the world, you know. Marriage and family is important, and we, need to have marriages that are centered on God and dedicated to God. So he said, I have become well known as a champion in each of these 8 areas. The support of all humanity is urgently needed for everything to be fulfilled. With God's grace, we will soon win the victory. Wow. I must end, though, with one little personal story. This was my own personal fishing story. I think I told it at one of these events before, so forgive me if you've heard it before. But I had a chance to go fishing on the Hudson River with Father Moon. I just finished my year at the seminary in New York. And there was an open invitation, and I went along. It was 4:30 or 5 in the morning. We were waiting, and Father Moon came, absolutely single-minded. Came to his boat, got on the boat, went out into the Hudson River. What was he doing? Well, actually, his wife was doing a 10-city tour, speaking tour of cities in North America. And he felt, well, if I go along with you, it might not help you, because people will be interested in me, and they need to be interested in you and what you're saying. So he, encouraged her to go there, but he didn't just leave her. He said, every morning while you're away, I'm going to catch 12 fish and offer that to God. This was his kind of way of thinking of prayer, of making some, serving God in some way, serving this cause. So he determined to do that, and it was a season of what are called striped bass, beautiful, very elegant fish that comes into the Hudson River for a period of a few weeks, I think. And he was going to catch these fish. So he set himself a goal. I'll catch 12 of these fish, and then when I caught those 12 fish, I'll go home, right? Now, that's a strong goal. You've done it fishing. Sometimes you catch a fish, and to be honest, just sometimes you don't, right? So he wanted to catch 12 of these big striped bass. So that was his determination. But that wasn't the only problem. There was a law on the river, and police boats patrolling. It said 1 person, 1 fish per day. So what was he going to do, right? He promised to God, I'm going to catch 12 fish a day. So by the law, he couldn't do it. So very wisely, on a boat just like this, probably this one actually, was made for 12 people. He took 11 Japanese ladies, right? Maybe 1 or 2 were helping to put bait on the hooks, but he had 6 rods like this, and he was really the only one fishing, but it counted as 12 people, so that boat could catch 12 fish, right? Very smart, right? And I was part of another group we were 12, on another boat about 50 meters to 100 meters away. So same patch of Hudson River. And by roughly 8 o'clock, Father Moon's boat came over to where we were, and they had to unload some fish because they had more than 12. So they gave us 3 or 4 of these fish. And then he went home, right? Because he'd done his job. Meanwhile, we hadn't caught any. So we were 12 people, each with a rod, trying to catch 1 fish each, right? And the sun came up and it got hotter and hotter. We were burning, and by 12 o'clock we decided, well, I think we better go home. So we went home, 12 of us who were fishing, and we hadn't caught any fish big enough to take. We had to put the smalls back. But that was a great lesson for me, I tell you, more than any kind of words. It was such a lesson. What he was doing with such a clear purpose, why I have to do this. And I don't want to spend long about it because I have other things to do, very important things, right? But for me, the goal was, well, I just want to go fishing with Father. In a sense, that's what I did. But I didn't catch one of those fish. Anyway, that was my little experience. But it also shows his kind of determination, his strategy, his love for nature, his love for God, and his love for his wife as well, right? Who supported that. So he was a man who lived a life of prayer. He said at one point, it's not that I make an effort to love God, but that I cannot help loving him. I have been that way. I pray for things 1,000 years from now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Father, thinking of 1,000 years from today, it's quite an amazing way of thinking. And it shows some real insight. I think he was a very charismatic and dynamic man. And thank you very much, David. This, I'm just going to show a video. This gives some chronology of Father Moon's life and the kind of things that he was involved in. It's deeply entwined with what happened in the life of Korean people, Korean War, which really devastated the country. After the Korean War, picking the country up and the restoration of business, culture, many areas of life. And he was very much a part of that. So. And that was produced in 2007. It's interesting to see that the hope for world peace in 2012. So I wish we would be in a much better situation than we are. It shows you something of the dynamism and in a sense, the desperation to accomplish something which will really have a major effect on the world. And I think, was driven by this inner force. Without that inner force, many people have given up, just been burnt out. That inner passion was so strong. We have many experiences of him not sleeping very much, and very early in the morning, 1, 2, 3 in the morning. Say 3 o'clock in the morning is the best time to pray. But he would be up at 5 or 6. So many times maybe not something to. But this was a really charismatic man. Who had a real powerful influence on so many of us. I'd like to introduce Sultan Palmer to welcome. Sultan Palmer is the National Director of the Family Federation for World Peace in the UK. And we used to work in our office. Margaret and I were probably terrible praise. But he's really grown a lot. He was really inspired by the idea of the religious youth service, and Ascension Trombone and Middle East Peace Initiative. Also working with youth and students for peace and getting major funding from Erasmus in order to work with young people into such activities for young people, following in Father Moon's footsteps and Mother Moon's footsteps. So we're really happy and inspired that this returned. Thank you. Please welcome Sultan.
Thank you, Robin, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today and to commemorate and remember the life of Reverend Dr. Sun Myung Moon on this 14th anniversary of his passing. I'm a relatively less experienced person than many of you here in the room, but I find it very, very encouraging and fascinating to observe people and their life stories. And often I'm asking myself, what is the measure of a human life? Right? It is never easy to pay tribute to someone who is accomplished, round person that has gone through many situations. And when we now commemorate Reverend Moon's life, his life spanned 80 years in the 20th century and 12 years in the 21st century. And so I see him as in some sense also as a bridgehead, as a figure of transition from the 20th century towards the 21st century. I had the chance to meet and work in the projects that Father Moon initiated only in this 21st century part of his life, right? But the video just so greatly showed that he was actually a person whose life was really, in a sense, a synopsis almost of the 20th century, and then a prophetic voice of the challenges and the situations we need to face in order to bring humanity into the 21st century, in an era of globalization, of a global village, that we need to change our way of thinking and being and living and loving fundamentally, if as humanity we want to succeed and grow in the 21st century. That's what I feel so strongly when I reflect on Father Moon's life. As it was mentioned, he experienced Japanese colonial rule and the struggle for Korean independence. He experienced the end of the Second World War, the end of the Second World War, the division of Korea into a communist North and a democratic South, as one of the focal points of the Cold War. He went then to America in the 70s and 80s and created a youth movement there that became a global youth movement for renewal, for ethics, for values. He witnessed the Cold War at its conclusion, and he saw meeting the top leaders of the outgoing Soviet world in order to usher in the new age. And I think what also defines the 20th century was really the growth of global institutions, the establishment of a rule of law in global institutions like the United Nations, like the World Trade Organizations, organization, and so on. At the same time, it's clear, in order for all these institutions that grew to survive and develop and be able to sustain them in the 21st century, we need to actually to reform the United Nations. And we need to move it out of this understanding that one nation can live for itself, the Security Council as an arena for self-interest of nations. And he proposed within the United Nations, for example, the establishment of an interreligious council as one of the core advocacy projects of UPF as well, in order to realize without a parental heart, without a parental presence, all these institutions will be challenged. All these institutions will crumble. And especially if the powerful nations like the United States use these institutions for their self-interest, there's no future for a real global family. And that's I think we can understand that all this work and this teaching and sharing and mobilization of people in the start of the 21st century is actually becoming more to understand how prophetic, how timely, how central and essential and important it is as we all understand the current situations we challenge. I want to share or remind us, about this, around the time when UPF was started. This was we all remember September 11, 2001, or many of us remember that as a pivotal point. And at that time, Father Moon was in Alaska. And when he learned about paratext at the United States, according to a person who was waiting with him at the time, he withdrew for 3 days into silence in the wilderness. He decided to cancel a 12,000 couple blessing of Christian pastors and religious leaders in New York, put a stop on that, and asked those people who had already come for this world clergy meeting to assist in the city. And then he understood and shared, this is not about America. This is not something externally political. This is a spiritual test. And the central question is, how will America respond? And how will the relationships between the West and it's a very crude wide term, the Muslim world, developed from this point on. He called religious leaders, transcend domination and religious boundaries, unite on common principles, guide political leaders morally and spiritually, help to prevent a tragedy from producing a wider circle of retaliation. And actually, then in the aftermath, he's been very critical of the Iraq War and other situations like that. It was, globally, this is on record in the speeches. So he thought this does not mean ignoring problems, but the only way to really address them is to look at the deeper spiritual roots under it. In October 2001, then just 1 month later, having canceled this big event, he had 500 religious leaders, political leaders from 101 countries gathered in New York, in the very place for a peace conference. It explored the religious dimension of violence, the disparity between the wealthy and impoverished societies, the relationship between the Islam and West, the responsibility of religious leaders, and reconciliation as an alternative to escalation and retaliation. He then, as a result, said, this was a very heated conference. You can imagine just 1 month after 9/11 to bring all these players together in New York at that very place. And then this spun off an initiative, and we had Abdurrahman Wahid, the former president of Indonesia, is a close friend of Father Moon, was already mentioned and pointed out in the presentation, as well as Louis Farrakhan, the major Muslim leader in America, to work together to create and convene a series of conferences called Islam and the Future of World Peace. And he said, I can only give you the money. You need to organize these conferences to find a united voice, how to contribute to a peaceful, globalized world in this time. And he mobilized many members of his foundation to provide the funds that these sort of conferences could take place at this very essential and crucial time. And then again, move beyond this Islam and future of peace world towards the interfaith world. And on that foundation, then 4 years later, UPF was founded, right? In 2005, on September 12th. I think this date was not chosen as a coincidence. It was a statement that the world, despite all these challenges, we need to move beyond 11. We need to reach the 12th. And for those who have been in the room with Father Moon on occasion, feel like he liked to play with numbers and their meanings. He liked to play and inspire with words, right? He was in this very room way before I was born, and he would of course play also with this. Great Britain, GB. That probably means great blessing, and to play around to uplift and inspire. As you all know, as friends and supporters of UPF, living for the sake of others, interreligious reconciliation, the renewal of the United Nations, and the True Family Movement were essential parts. And out of this work came the Middle Peace initiatives and many things in this time. I'm sharing about this because this was the time when I grew up as a child of UPF, volunteering, supporting, and learned from great people who were directly inspired by Father Moon, as well as including Auntie Margaret here and Robin Marsh. Because the mission of UPF, and I think I was wondering, okay, let's not just remember Father Moon today. Let's think, okay, what would he be talking about today? And I think he would be talking about, yes, our international institutions have crumbled because there was no parental heart. There was one-sided abuse of international institution for one or the other nation to gain an upper hand and expand its influence. We need genuine international institution where this parental heart, that all the children, thinking of the nations of the world as children, have their place, their role, where their history is acknowledged, where they're treated fairly, but also held accountable Yes, and it's painful to say this time because it's such a challenging time for exactly these situations. Yeah, globally. So this parent, if I would need to summarize, I would say the slogan would be "Peace needs parents," as a sort of core of the thoughts that Father Moon infused into UPF. And parents means to have the heart that is willing to sacrifice for one child, to protect the weak child, to find ways to reconcile if two brothers and sisters are struggling with each other, represent the well-being of the whole human family, bring religious and moral wisdom into the global decision making, encourage nations to live for the sake of other nations, protect people from the misuse of political power, address underlying causes of conflict, strengthen families as the foundation of peaceful societies, and recovering a parental understanding of authority so that our international institutions can again gain the natural authority they should have in resolving conflicts. I would like to close with also with a personal experience. And it was it was already 2012, and we didn't know it at that time, but Father Moon had already pneumonia, but he was pushing ahead with another project, which we called the Able Women UN, which is uplifting the Women's Federation to a higher level. And my wife, we got the invitation to help. We mobilized to support this project in Korea while we were on a honeymoon in Japan. And in that point, yeah, we thought and we said, yeah, okay, what is more important, world peace or our honeymoon? Let's go over to Korea and support that project. And we were in the end so grateful because we didn't know it. This was the last public appearance, Father Moon at the time. Not at the time. It was his last. This time was his last appearance. And so then, one morning I had the chance, to go up to one of his famous 5 a.m. study and reflection sessions, which could sometimes stretch until 8 a.m. or sometimes until noon. Maybe some of the crew here had experienced this situation. This one was not a long one, but it was a very memorable one, because throughout this morning, he was coughing, right? Deep, pneumonic cough. He kept sharing, asking people to share their work and their inspirations. And I don't remember much from that experience and from the session. But then it was like his wife, Mother Moon, sent in a little note saying, "Grandfather," reading out, "Grandfather, you have a hospital appointment. You need to stop now and go to the hospital." He held it up and asked, "Do you think I should follow Mother or not?" When she's telling you to come. And she says, "She cares for me. I need to go." And then he then still continued talking for a bit. But then eventually, when at the age of 92, right, went out, it went out. But then in the door, he turned it one more time around and said, "I'm sorry. I wish I could more time with you. I wish I could love you more. I wish I could do more for you." And this is, someone who has worked himself towards the very, very end. And we could see from the video, someone who has given everything throughout his life, then to apologize to a 24-year-old, because I felt he was talking personally to me. "Sorry that I can't love you more. Taught me something about the essence, what true love is really about. For me, that is the key legacy. It's like, although we have done everything, That's the parental heart, right? Although parents have done everything for their children, fed them, you know, and so on. The heart of a parent is still, I wish I could have done more. Not out of guilt or accusation or kind of low self-esteem or something like this, but just because that's the nature of true love. It's never enough. I always wish I could have done more. And so if let's remember that legacy of Father Moon, that is carried forward by many young people, especially by his wife, essentially in this time, taught us really this heart. That is, I wish I could do more. And I think if that heart, if that seed of true love is planted in us as we are gathered here today as ambassadors for peace, and as we walk and work out in our different walks of life, to bring that out on the big topics and as the small topics in the family, as well as the big topics of reforming the United Nations, which is now more urgent than ever, and the many other issues that our global rule of law and institutions face. If we can have that heart, I wish I could do more, and then do more. Then I think we'll have a big Korean smile in the sky. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father. So I'd like to invite a distinguished guest, Lieutenant General Senator Abdul Qayyum, to speak. He is a senator, a lieutenant general. He's a former chairman of the Senate former member of Senate standing committees on overseas Pakistanis, a former member of the faculty of Pakistan National Defense University, former liaison officer with the United Nations Military Observers Group in India and Pakistan, and a former military secretary with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and also a recipient of the Universal Peace Federation Ambassador Peace Award. And we're very grateful that you could come and join us again. We know from your previous speeches that a military man who knows the cost of war also knows the price of peace and the value of peace that many of us take for granted. So we want to welcome you to come and address us this morning. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Robin March, the Secretary General of UPF, which has the status of consultation, the status with the United Nations as an NGO. Madam Margaret, who has been previous director here and now is the advisor, and new director, also I see and there. People from different continents, from different countries, and from different religions. And journalists, I can see a few here, ladies and gentlemen. It indeed is a great honor and a privilege to be here and sharing my humble views on this great occasion where we are paying our regards and homage to a great leader, Father Moon. I was here on 3rd September 2024 also, and I attended this function. After having listened to very, very enlightening speech by Dr. David and other speaker, director, national director here, and then seeing that video about his personal life And in the speeches, it was mentioned about his spiritual strength and his urge for the unification and interfaith harmony and so on. I don't think so that I can add anything in that vocabulary. But one thing which comes to my mind is his broad mission of universal peace. I, being a soldier, being a political worker, I am also author of a few books. As a citizen of Pakistan, I also feel that the main mission is universal peace. And we have to see from all angles that how peace can be achieved, which was the main concern of Father Moon. In that context, then, I would like to go back in history and share with you that in the prehistoric days, the fights and conflicts and wars used to be on three things. One was land. People wanted to live and use for cultivation of food. Second was food, and third was water. But with the passage of time, in the ancient time and in the Middle Ages, then there were empires. They used to fight with each other for wealth, for power, and for territory, because they would need expansion and so on. Then came the time of 1500 AD to 1800 AD. And in these 3-4 centuries, it was colonial expansion that created rift and that created tension, and that was no good for the universal peace. And I would like to share here that out of 57 Muslim countries which are existing today, almost all, barring 1, 2, or 3, have been the colonies of the Western part, Britain, France, Spain, Dutch, and so on. So that was the time. But in 1900, that is the 20th century's beginning, until the end, it's our First World War, it's our Second World War, and it's our Cold War, which created polarization and which created a lot of differences, killing, and so on. And now in the 21st century, mainly people are going for mineral reserves, for oil and gas, for energy, for the waterways, and another menace is the terrorism, and then civil wars on sectarian issues and religious points and so on. So therefore, these all things are there. And throughout history, there have been great people who've been fighting for peace, universal peace. And in them, you can name few, for example, Nelson Mandela. He has been doing his best. Martin Luther King Jr. had his mother, Teresa. And so many more. And in them stood out Father Moon. He had the mission, and you have seen his lifestyle and his conviction, his meditation, and his open mind to understand as to what was who created this universe, and what are the demands on the creatures. So in that, as we were listening, that when he was in prison in the United States of America, there he studied 2 books. One was Bible and the second was Quran. That speaks volumes about his open mind to understand as to who was the creator of the universe and how we should live, and what is the message that the different religions have been giving to us. Father Moon, as you know, was born in 1920. And it was a coincidence that after the First World War, 1920 was the year when first international peace agreement was signed by the League of Nations. He was born there, and this League of Nations Universal Peace and Conflict Resolution, and this all was then decided. But then when he was 19 years old, First World War started in 1939, 40, then he was 20, 21, 23, and he saw with his own eyes the nuclear bombs being used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the horrors of Second World War, in which about 70 to 80 million people laid their lives. So he was moved. And then in 1954, when he was just 34 years old, then he realized that there has to be a unification movement that he started. And in that process, then he went, as was mentioned, to Soviet Union, met President Gorbachev, because to understand different cultures, because Father Moon did not only believe in religious harmony, he said social, psychosocial, cultural integration was important. He also went to North Korea and met, came to Sun, he was their president in 1991, he met him. I had the chance to meet that leader in 1994 when I went there as a military secretary with Prime Minister. And it was a bilateral visit, and I met him. Nelson Mandela, I had the chance to meet him on his oath-taking ceremony in 1994. I was attending that ceremony and saw his simple demeanor and his living, and I went to his office. It was very simple, and his message was very clear. So then Father Moon also sent his people to different countries, over 100 countries, as was mentioned, 158 countries. And he collected together all the people from different countries and talked of peace after 9/11 and so on. So he did his best. And his broad mission was international peace. It was peaceful coexistence. His mission was interfaith harmony. He had love for the creation of the Creator, and therefore he went to different countries and he met different people. But then we realized that why Father Moon, the message could not be brought forward, because even today in the world you see that we are at war, we have conflicts, we are not concentrating on the uplift of people in health, education, and so on. And then he founded in 2005 this Universal Peace Federation, because he wanted this a forum from where we could talk. And hats off to Robert March and his team that they do a tremendous job in this context, creating such seminars in which people come and express their opinion. But more important is that whatever was the message of Father Moon, we have to see its practical implementation. And to see that, we have to see what are the reasons, why are we here? And in that context, when I see the vision of Father Moon, it ironically is absolutely the same, which are the objectives of United Nations. What are those objectives? They are, for example, conflict resolution, that is international peace, that is human rights, that is, for example, working or taking care of the refugees, health, education, climate change, and so on. And the horrors that you see even now, what happened in Nepal, is really, one shudders to see that this can happen because of the climate change and aspect. So these all were there. So why has not United Nations then been able to be effective to ensure world peace? The fault is not with United Nations, because United Nations has 193 members. They have a fine objective. They have a charter, and people there, they have signed that. And that gives you, for example, in their charter, chapter 6 says that to anybody who threatens international peace, they should be taken to task. And in chapter 7, then it gives the different steps. First step is that ensure their diplomatic isolation if they don't listen to UN Charter and resolutions. Second is then there are economic sanctions. Do that. But if that also fails, then the United Nations has the authority to use a kinetic force to ensure that the country is taken to task which is violating the international law. But unfortunately, that is not happening. Why? Not because of the United Nations, but because of the members who don't want to listen to the United Nations, and then they invade other countries at their will, and they have no regard for even International Court of Justice. So therefore, if this is the crux, that means that we need to really make sure that the countries abide by the international law. And if only then you can transform the vision of such great leaders as Father Moon into reality and make this world a peaceful world for every small or big country to live. But and in addition to that, the other reason is why United Nations. One reason is this, that the people are not cooperating. Second is the structural flaws in the United Nations. Unfortunately, I have to say this because this was the manifesto was made, the charter was made by the victors, and they kept the provision for the veto. And those vetoes were used many times for Palestine, for Kashmir, for many other countries, international. Second is the Security Council composition, which is not fully representative of the different continents. For example, South America, African continent, 1.5 billion Muslims are there. So if we are really interested to bring global peace and put people together, we will have to make United Nations, we will have to reform it and make it more democratic, where majority decision should be taken, and in that only then. And that is what I wanted to say, that with kinetic force and with wars and all that, you cannot solve international problems. We have seen in the First World War, for example, about 20 million people died. And in the Second World War, I said about 70 to 80 million people died, and only United States of America had the nuclear bomb, and that was used. Now, more than 10 countries have nuclear bombs. And if we head towards the Third World War, it will be catastrophic. And that is why we say that we should avoid, we should make sure that we don't go towards that end. And the only remedy for that is, only solution is that we should all obey the international law and remain within our limits. Second World War had a lot of horrors and so on. And now there are about 10, 11 countries which are declared nuclear powers, but 10, 11 countries are just a screwdriver away from becoming and if there is a Third World War, then you can imagine that what can happen to us. So that way, to conclude, I have written a few points, take 1 minute or two. I would like to say that we need to believe in geopolitical realism, global power equilibrium, and pragmatic diplomacy, and refrain from global interventions, as was highlighted in former US President Nixon's doctrine of 1969. He exactly highlighted this, that this we have to do, that the geopolitical realities to be realized. Small countries or big countries have the right to exist according to the UN Charter. Number two, international law and not the superpowers' military might can provide security guarantees to smaller states. We have seen recently that you cannot give your security responsibilities, you can't outsource your security responsibilities to outside countries, you have to make. And that best defense is not your only national strength, but the international law which protects you. Third is, kinetic power also has limitations, as was proved by NATO's embarrassment in Afghanistan. You have seen with that prolonged fight, ultimately nothing has been. Similarly in Vietnam and so on. And US unsuccessful regime change operation in Iran. Again, we can sit together and through the dialogue, which Father Moon always said, we can come into a international It is important to note that nations can bear economic pains to protect their autonomy. Because you can see, for example, Iran is under sanctions for the last 47 years. That doesn't help. You have to sit together, sign agreements, listen to others, have tolerance, and so on. We salute Father Moon's vision and selfless efforts for achieving international peace, but feel that the best way to pay homage to late Father Moon was to practically implement his vision, for which he founded UPF in 2005. Father Moon's vision was, very briefly, obey international law, respect differences, show tolerance, promote dialogue, reduce poverty, promote education, protect human rights, and encourage disarmament. Now, even today, we have certain countries have thousands of atom bombs, and others are told that no, you can't have it. I think this law has to be applicable to the entire world and ensure that this disarmament is effective and the countries have the authority. Then, above all, also the precise objectives, as I said, but I have now read the vision of Father Moon. These are the objectives of United Nations also, and I have dilated on them. There are structural flaws in this great institution in the form of veto power and not fully represented UN Security Council. These flaws need to be removed. Best way to pay homage to the great leaders, like I said earlier, Sun Myung Moon, is to make endeavors to translate his dream regarding world peace into reality. So with this, I end, and I am so grateful, sir, as always, that you've been so kind. We have to make sure that at the level of the United Nations, we should bridge this gap, and we need great leaders like Father Moon to be present and to create that harmony. And I salute your dedication and your team's effort for this purpose that you are doing. I can assure you that we in Pakistan, for example, you have seen that in the this conflict in Middle East, Pakistan is in the forefront in diplomatic endeavors to bring these two countries together, which never sat on one table. For example, Iran and the United States of America, since the Iranian Revolution of 1979. But Pakistan made it possible, not only that they should have dialogue, but sit together and talk to each other, and even know that endeavor. I think this is the positive thing that we need to do in all countries, and I hope that we will continue doing this. But salute to Father Moon. Really, after seeing the video and after listening to very enlightening presentations here, one is really overwhelmed, and we pray that we have more Father Moon in this world to ensure that there is no mutual destruction. In fact, there is a mutual confidence. And with that, sir, I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, anyone would like to make a short contribution? 1 to 2 minutes, like to say something? Please.
I think
Please come over, if you could introduce yourself.
good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Ifemi Harumi. I'm a lecturer in Southern University. I've been a part of this fantastic forum for about 12, I think. Well, because of my PhD program, I had to step back a little bit. I need to commend the effort and the vision of Father Moon and this gathering. I come from a nation where peace is a rare situation. I come from Nigeria. I'm originally from Nigeria, where peace is a rare thing to see. And when Sir was talking about peace and nations and United Nations and the effect of that on the nationhood, I feel pain in my heart. I come from Nigeria, where some people wake up in the morning and they're not sure where their life will be because of religious differences, where Muslims attack Christians, Christians they need to reciprocate, and they're like that. And Father Moon's vision was to see all religions put together, come together in peace. And some part of my nation, my country, where citizens who go to the same school end up, because of religious differences, end up killing each other. Where they hacking, it's not like killing each other, hacking each other to death just because of religious differences. I tend to key into this, and I want to appeal to this graduate. One of these days, we'll take this forum to Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Please, you want to could you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you so much. My name is Harmeet Shah Singh. I am Communications and Advocacy Director for United States UK, a charity registered in England and Wales. So my question is a bit uncomfortable one, and it's about AI. We are living in the age of AI. And this was a remarkable presentation that I saw on video. And we all saw that how someone like Father Moon came up with a vision. But now we are living in a very complicated age. It's the age of artificial intelligence. And trust me, I think that it's not a dot-com boom, certainly not. Dot-com boom was welcomed by almost everyone because it came with the promise of economic betterment, jobs, and an array of other opportunities. AI is going to take that away. That's for sure. Now, the profound question, and I think we should all put our head together to it, is that we have seen, and it's my personal experience because I come from media background. I've spent more than 25 years in media industry. And I also happen to be representing the community, of course, in whatever small capacity I can. And somewhat, I'm conversant with theology. What I've seen now in the past, because AI came with the launch of ChatGPT, that was a big thing in the sense that the mainstreaming of AI, the project was much older, and it came in 2022 November. Now the world has changed with the advent of AI. And the writing is on the wall. I say so because we have seen young people now turning to artificial intelligence for moral guidance. Moral guidance. It's true. Not just young people, young and old alike. They are not, the questions they once asked religious leaders, they're now asking robots, and robots are responding to their satisfaction. Now, this is going to upend spirituality. Just a few months ago, there was the Reuters report, and that too from South Korea, that they have come up with a monk, which is a robot. Yes, a Reuters report followed by the New York Times. It was a robotic monk. Yes. Absolutely Google it. It was there. So this is a very profound crossroads that we are at. And I think our conversation, instead of looking back at history, now should turn their gaze at immediate future. So that is, these are just 2 cents that I would like to, I want to present here, and very impromptu. And I apologize if it didn't really generate the theme of the event. Thank you so much.
Can you go? Keep joining.
The first lady that yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victoria Lamaure. Today I am representing Latin community in UK, South America, from Peru, Colombia, Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela. Yes, listen now. Yes. My name is Victoria Lamaure. I am representing Latin community here in UK. I have my community. The people is from Peru, Colombia, Chile, Ecuador, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, everyone, Brazil. Today I need thank you for the invitation today here. I need talking or writing because my English is not perfect again, but I'm writing here about for me what is the peace. Today I would like to talk about the peace in the world. The peace is very important because everyone deserves to live between fear, violence, or war. In the world, there are many different countries, culture, religions. We may have different, but we should respect and help everyone and the other culture and country. The war causes sufferance, destroy families, and affecting many innocent people. In test of fighting, countries should communicate and find peaceful solution to their problems. We can help create peace through simple action. We can be kind and respect and the other, listen to different opinions, and help those who need us. Peace begins with each one of us. If we work together with respect, love, and understand, we can make the world a better and more peaceful in the world. Thank you for listening. I think it's very important. Living together and respect the faith because every people have different mentality, different religion, different opinion. I think it's very important. Everyone respects everyone for living together in this world because this world is very legal, but I need respect, I need listen, I need love together. I think so is the only one solution is possible live together forever. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So just one more.
One more.
Yeah, it's
Thank you very much for this evening. I must say, first of all, my name is Suhail Munawar. I'm from Slough and mostly a businessman, and I have a political background, which makes me still a very good student, I would say. And I must say, I've been invited here 3 times before, and I got the opportunity to come in journal. And after today, I would say, listening to the journey of Reverend Moon and how he lived his life and what platform he made, I am so touched and I'm feeling guilty in that respect that I'm not being member of this, wonderful federation before. But I'm going from here onwards, I will be and put my as much effort I can. And I just want to make the point that the gentleman said about AI and the challenges coming along and and there is always a solution, and the human race is very clever in that respect. And how can we tackle and how can we basically take us forward within even these challenges? And my thinking towards is that platforms like this then need to take another gear and basically take the pace and change their tactics and change their reach according to what is desired to meet them. And I think that's where I feel most of the federations or most of the charities and everything, they are not taking that sort of approach. I see in my political world, I always had debates with my senior colleagues that we are in 21st centuries and we're still playing the politics of 80s and 70s, where we think that our messages is in a certain way reaching, but the ground reality is changing. And now we see it. There's no red, white, or blue areas anymore. People are different. Similarly, in the religion matters as well, or this kind of message where we talk about the peace. People are willing to listen to it, but how are we reaching them? And how are we connecting with them? That is also very important. And I think the missions that people like General Kayum and being platformed, and I have seen other people coming along here, it's very important to push this message through a digitalized manner and reaching out to the mass. My own son, for some time I have discussions around him. They're very intelligent people. We used to have this, always having this generational, we try to tell them a story. Oh, we had the one of the best or era. But when I speak to our kids, they are very intelligent, very analytical approaches, and it's just, but where they are connecting, how they're getting that information. And I think that is very important key factor going forward for us or anybody to introduce them, these kind of people. I must say, it's my first introduction to them. And I would like to read more about him. And I would like to listen to him and put my, generation start. So this is important. And I think going forward, if I would,